there who, let's say, can afford that.
Yeah,
there aren't very many people that can afford that.
Yeah, of course. But that same group probably takes Medicaid and Medicare also.
That I can't say. But I do know that this is what it is. It's being advertised throughout Florida.
Dan, just see here. This is the latest statistics that I find from 2012. And in 2012, they said there are about 100 million working age Americans that do not have jobs.
Wow, I was way off in my figuring then.
That is a tremendous amount of people. This is in 2012. The numbers must have gotten a little better, so that's where the 91.8 million probably came in.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 90 million people maybe of working age do not have jobs.
Wow.
How many college students who just graduated are in that category? And right now, if you count from June, to now, that 6-month gratis period that they give you before they start charging you, it costs you to pay back all of your loans.
Yeah.
That gratis period is just about ending. June, July, August, September, October, November. At the end of this month, the Christmas present is going to be they're going to get their first bill to repay some of these college loans, and they're still living in their parents' house because they can't find work.
Yeah. So parents start paying the kids' college loans to help out.
That's exactly what happens. I know a friend of a friend's son who lives in Jersey. His parents took a second mortgage out on their house to pay back their son's college loans.
But they just so you know, our original topic is what? I don't even remember.
You forgot about it. The original topic was...
It's been said that God will provide.
God will provide. How many times have you heard the expression, not to worry, God will provide? You don't have a job, you don't have clothes, you don't have a roof over your head. Don't worry, God will provide. Okay, who's God?
I heard that, but I do worry still. Geez. That's great and all, but unfortunately, most people do have 2 jobs to provide for their family. I don't know.
And almost 100 million don't have jobs.
Right, exactly.
And 30% of those people don't want to work.
Yeah, they've given up entirely.
That's the problem with unemployment, and it's definitely catch-22. I mean, you can get, a person not working these days can get $420 a week unemployment for doing nothing, and and you get free health care with Obamacare, and it doesn't pay to go to work.
Well, but the point is, I'm assuming
if you're living, you can't afford to live in America, and it's not the greatest neighborhood for it. But the government's giving you $420 a week unemployment, and you get Obamacare free. You don't have a job or free health care. What's the point of going to a job out there in the job market? I mean, it's really weak out there. I mean, and the part-time jobs or even full-time jobs, really paying $600-700 a week for the taxes. Only taking home $500 a week anyway. Big college graduates.
You have to understand that when you talk about unemployment, that's for the people who are still collecting unemployment.
Right.
I have a feeling the 30% are those who have already exhausted their unemployment, because let's face it, they weren't complaining that much when they were getting $400 a week and they were getting free medical. But now, they are no longer getting the $400 a week. They've given up looking for a job because they can't find one. So really, when you talk about the lowest of the low, that's exactly what some of these people have become.
And one of the other things you have to realize is what the privilege that you have, Dan, of the free medical, because of your situation, is not in every state in the United States.
You're right, correct. That's just New York.
New York is very generous. There are other states that are not as generous as New York. There are states that did not accept the Obama.
That's right, the extra money from the government.
Didn't accept the exchange.
You can't, if I get injured, if I'm in New Jersey and I get injured, I'm not covered. It's from New York. That's just New York healthcare.
I remember last week.
I can travel, but if I get sick outside of New York, you're not covered.
I think New Jersey also has an exchange, actually.
You are covered because you're covered under
No,
New York.
you're not covered. I went through that already. You can't. If I get California, I can't go to doctor in California. That's only near health care.
No, he's an HMO.
So in other words, if you went to a state that didn't have this extra coverage, they wouldn't honor the coverage from New York?
No.
Because New York would be still paying your bill.
No, that's just New York State, like you're saying. New York State is generous, but you cannot take your New York health card and go to Jersey, Connecticut. You get injured, you get a car accident up there, and you get really hurt. You can't use the hospital up there, or a doctor's office up there. That's in New York.
So you drag yourself back to the state line.
No, the problem is...
New York, that's a bad example, but if you're visiting your family somewhere in Florida, you can get, if you're ill, you can't use your New York State health care card down there. It doesn't work.
That's because Dan has an HMO, and an HMO, there's only a certain number of doctors that participate in it. And you may have the same thing. You have an HMO, don't you?
I don't even know what they call it. PPO, HMO. I think it's an HMO.
Do you have to go to a doctor? Do you need a referral to go to another doctor?
No, I don't need a referral. I don't need a referral.
Maybe it's a PPO then. But most people are under that restriction where they have an HMO. They can't go anywhere they want because the doctors don't participate.
For the life of me, I don't understand why a governor, would not take advantage of this free money from the government to cover these people,
Because they would have had to taken on the rest of the luggage or baggage that came with it, which they didn't want.
They had Bobby Jindal on Meet the Press last week, and he was one of the first ones who said, I'm not taking that money. And who else? Rick Perry, another Republican. I'm not taking that money,
Because now they have to abide by certain rules that they don't want to abide by.
And who suffers? The person suffers, don't they?
Yeah, most likely people suffer. But the people in those states don't really care. They've been brainwashed enough not to realize the advantages of having a socialistic type plan in the United States.
Well, that's because they hear the word socialism and right away they, the big red scare from the 20s and 30s and just before World War II, and then after with McCarthy.
Well, communism. That's do you know who was there was a communist that was involved with Obama's life?
I don't know who you're talking about.
I read about something. There was he was a true communist, and he was.
Hey, listen.
He was a mentor.
Something? Back in the 50s, the late 40s, and the early 50s, if you were to take a poll, half of the Americans believed in the socialistic way of life because it appealed to the working man, the common man.
Yeah.
Okay? So you really can't go by that.
No, he was he wrote a communist newspaper. He belonged to the American Communist Party.
I don't know.
And he was, again, this was done by one of these right-wing programs, so you have to take it a little bit with, take a little bit of salt. But they mentioned the guy's name, and I don't remember it, and he was a well-known communist, and he was his mentor. Now, it doesn't mean that the guy was still a communist 10 years ago. He may have changed his mind.
Hey, listen, if you read the Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels, all right, it spelled out very clearly that the government was going to provide, there would be a central party, okay, and within 5 years, the central party would turn over power to the people. Well, What was it that Machiavelli said? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
These people in the inner circle of the Communist Party, as we called them back then, they didn't want to give up power because they enjoyed being in power.
There is no true communist country in the world, and there never has.
But originally,
I'm just saying there is none, and there never has been one.
Originally, everything was supposed to be socialism. Everybody was going to share. The closest you have to that right now
is the kibbutz in Israel.
That's right. In the free world are the kibbutzes in Israel, where the people work and they share communally, and the children are brought up by the community. You talk about it takes a village. Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
You have the village right there, and they're all brought up. And yes, they have natural parents, but they also have the rest of their community in the kibbutz. And they have their own medical, and they have it's a self-sufficient way of life. Now, not everybody in Israel lives on a kibbutz.
It's just a place where if you're poor, you have nowhere to go. You can go to kibbutz and join the kibbutz.
I think Felix was going to be on a kibbutz. He was going to be a real taskmaster. They had him there forcing people to work against their will. You were terrible, Felix. That's what I heard.
The worst.
Terrible boss.
Terrible boss. That's
you were one of the horrible bosses that they made the movie about.
Dan, you still there?
I'm still listening.
All right, so
maybe let's hear some music.
Some music? Are you requesting?
Yeah, maybe you got what song are you gonna put on? Cats in the Cradle? It's a good song.
Yeah, it is.
It is, but we can't play it because it's copyrighted. That's why you had to listen to me recite it.
I gotcha.
But listen, it was good. But I'm going to put on a song very quietly. Hopefully. It never works in the show, and we can still make comments, but this show seems like...
Oh, how about How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying? Remember the song that Howard Morris sang, The Brotherhood of Man?
Yep.
There is a brotherhood. I sang this in high school. Of man, a perpetual brotherhood. Of man, a noble tide of mind. Of human hearts and minds into one brotherhood of man. Your life's long membership is free. Keep giving each brother all you can. Oh, aren't you proud to be in that fraternity, that great big brotherhood of man? And there's more, but I don't remember it.
What do you think of that?
I don't know if I requested that song, but okay.
Why, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You liked it so much, I might torture you with another.
All right, guys, I'm going to sign out.
All right, Dan, it was a pleasure hearing from you. Thanks a lot.
All right,
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Appreciate you calling.
No problem, guys.
All right.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dan. Used to be a frequent caller. Now glad that he called. First time in many months, actually. And,
we always enjoy having him.
Always enjoy having him on the show. But seriously, didn't we have a song that we said we wanted to sing?
Yeah, actually, yes.
It wasn't Amen, was it? Was it?
No. It wasn't Amen. It was. Wait, I'll find it. Okay, where are you? We have so many songs here. Oh gosh.
And if you feel like singing along at home, feel free to do so.
Oh, where are you? Come on, baby. Angel of Hope. Nope. Oh, here we go. And we're gonna make a little
Name
quiet.
that tune. I could name that tune in 3 notes.
Wait, no, that's not it either.
Oh boy.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna start.